this session will be rather different. I'll still record it just in case the end result, which I have no idea about right at the moment, because it's kind of stuff I know, but I haven't sat down and worked out what I'm going to do. But basically what I want to do is take you to the website for the Coin Foundation, the CCCRH Foundation, and then in particular show you some of the records behind the scene in the database, which is probably what's on the screen behind me already. But a number of these galleries are already pre-packaged and are shared to the website. So, for example, as we'll see in a moment, all the objects that are in the that are actually in the exhibition for the Ephesus module, if you like, those items are also tagged in the database, and you can see all of them, and also the PowerPoint, without even borrowing the artifacts. Now, it's not as good, obviously, as actually having the kids pass a first century oil lamp around and go, really, how do you find the way to the bedroom with one of these? But you can do a lot of, even before the kit arrives, you could do a lot of the preparation just using the digital resources which are already online. So let's just go to the website for the Centre for Coins, Culture and Religious History. It is now a properly set up foundation. We're in the process of getting gift fund status, so you can all leave us your jewellery or whatever. Especially if it's old jewellery, we'll put it in the display. And that's taking a bit longer to organise. It's set up as a ministry under the auspices of St John's Cathedral, with a view to the longer term, because cathedrals historically have been not only places of worship, but also places of fine arts, learning, scholarship, and so on. And after the last Anglican church in southeast Queensland has closed, the cathedral will still be functioning, presumably, if it comes to that. So we figured that's the institutional home for this collection of material. I'm the initial director of that centre. Peter, as he's mentioned, is one of our researchers and our primary researcher at the moment, because I'm kind of busy being the Dean of Grafton Cathedral and doing a few other projects, but this is one of my projects, is to do the online database, galleries and so on, to do with the coins. So if you go to the actual centre website, however you find there, but it's just your CCCRH.org, you'll find your way in. Now there is a link there for education, so it just has some information about the theory of using this, which is basically if the kids can have the artefact in their hand and they're going to start asking questions. For instance, I was helping out with the Christian Studies program, as they call it, at Clarence Valley Anglican School in first term, just before COVID hit, and we all went, And we're doing a unit, I think it was from Maccabees to Herod, which we have had on display here one other time. And the mother of one of the girls in the class, who I think would have been in year 6 at that time, her mum's on school council, I know her quite well. She said, her daughter was coming home and saying, we've got Father Greg for Christian Studies, but he's not doing religion. He's talking about history and coins and pottery, and we're not doing any religion. And I said to Sonia, it's okay. She'll see where I'm going. But they were discovering that when we're talking about Christian faith and Christian history, we're not just talking about stories dreamed up after too many mushrooms, but that there is there's a background here, there's a historical background. It doesn't mean that every story in the Bible happened just the way the Bible said, but there was a place called Egypt, and there was a person called David, and Herod was real, and we do have coins and so on, which is not to say he killed all the baby children in Bethlehem or whatever. But he was the kind of character that people believe stories like that about him, which is why Matthew told that story, fictional though it was, about Herod, because it fitted with the truth of Herod's nasty character. The boys he killed were his own sons. Okay, only 3 of them managed to live long enough to have a shot at succeeding him. He even killed his favourite wife, of which he had, well, several wives, not several favourites, obviously. And he felt bad afterwards because she was his favourite. But he thought she was conspiring against him with one of his sons, her son, to bump him off. So they all got murdered on his orders. So he was the kind of guy who would murder anybody who he suspected of trying to become king. And that's exactly the story in Matthew. Okay, so there's a kind of a historical truth to it, but there wasn't a massacre in Bethlehem with, thousands of Jewish boys dead. That's a story out of Exodus, which Matthew is recycling. It's called Midrash, recycling it. And hopefully the kids get to learn all that kind of stuff. So you've got these resources here. There are some links to them there, but the best thing is probably just to go to exhibitions. And there are a number of exhibitions that are mentioned here. I just want to work through some of them and then look at a couple of the galleries that draw on the database. The collection itself currently has just over 3,000 items, and about 2,300 of those are probably coins, and the other 700 or 800 are other things like arrowheads. There's a cylinder which we won't be sending out to your school. There's a dedication cylinder from the temple in Babylon from about 2300 BCE, with marked up with sort of cuneiform text. It's very fragile. I'm not even been allowed to touch it, okay, but I'm allowed to look at it, provided I don't touch it. So we have an amazing diversity of material. The coins are fairly indestructible, and the coins that we would send out to the school are not coins which are so valuable you need to lay awake at night worrying about where they are this evening. Those coins we don't send out. We do have coins like that, but sorry, we won't be sending them out to your school. So, for example, if you were to go, if you look at this first one, the cathedral coins, that's actually a permanent exhibition which is in St John's Cathedral, hence the name, the cathedral coins. It's roughly 100 coins, and there's a little booklet here which actually was written by Peter, and you can download that as a PDF by clicking here somewhere. So you can actually download the PDF as well. So you've got two things. You could have a field trip to the cathedral for various reasons, all kinds of interesting things about the cathedral. I mean, the cathedral, like any thoughtfully designed church, is a piece of theology in stone. Everything has a meaning. And we can get very precious about that, but the building is it's a teaching moment, and there are multiple lessons at the cathedral. So that's, but while you're at the cathedral, one of the things you could see and you could prepare for before or afterwards is by doing some work around the cathedral coins. Obviously there's the book, but there's also an exhibition that goes with it. So I think I'll call this one virtual tour, which is not what I normally call them, but if that's doing what I think it's going to do, yeah, it's taking you into my Airtable database, and here you've got all the coins that are in the cathedral collection, which you can see physically, but you can actually go through them here beforehand by yourself with the class doing what I'm doing now, and you could work through them. So you get a brief description of each coin, and that's basically what's in the book. I've just copied and pasted across to the database, and of course you can go in and look at the individual coins and look at them more closely and so on. So, and actually the coins at the cathedral you can't touch, they're behind a locked glass case. So in some ways this virtual tour of the cathedral coins is a good way to sort of see what's there, learn about them, before or after you've got the kids in there. And the coins include, so I'll go back to the start of the collection. They're organised in the same sequence as they are on display at the cathedral. So they start with the very first coins, from when coins were invented, basically in the 500s BCE, and they work their way through. So we've got a coin there from Lydia, we've got a coin from Athens, a Persian gold daric, come down to Alexander III, who we all know as Alexander the Great. Okay, Seleucus, so you're going into the successor states in the Hellenistic period, the Seleucid Empire, the Ptolemaic Empire. Then you go down to Antiochus IV Epiphanes. He's the bad guy. No, I can't say remember, but I shouldn't say that. He is the bad guy, whether you know about him or not. He's the bad guy who triggered the Maccabean revolt by trying to, let's say, paganize Jerusalem, and for the first time in history, actually tried to exterminate Judaism. Circumcision was banned. The boys thought that was a good thing. Couldn't read the Torah, couldn't gather for synagogue prayers, couldn't offer sacrifices at the temple. This is actually a fairly significant cultural event in its own right, quite apart from its significance to our religious tradition. Because the reaction to that, the cultural resistance to that, spawned the Maccabean rebellion, which led to the formation of an independent Jewish state, which was then absorbed by Rome, and you got eventually the Herodian dynasty, because Herod managed what turned out to be the last of the Hasmonean princesses, because he murdered all their brothers, also known as his brothers-in-law. And so there's a whole kind of world history stuff going on here, which is also relevant to biblical knowledge, biblical literacy, religious literacy, and so on. Tyre and Sidon. Now, time you get to Alexander Jannaeus, you're into the Hasmonean dynasty. The Galilee is becoming Jewish. And he reigned for about 35 years or so, and he minted so many coins, they kept being used for another 60 or 70 years after he died. Some of the coins found in the well in Nazareth were coins of this guy, Alexander Jannaeus. Go right down through Mark Antony, Cleopatra. She was a stunner, as you can see. And if you click on any of these, like if we go to Augustus, you click on these, you've got the description, which is in the book, and depending how OCD you are with your numismatic scholarship, you've got the standard literature references. As much as possible, I try to put in biblical references that correlate with that artifact. This is our own internal referencing. This just means cathedral coins number 14, because that's a way of grabbing out, filtering out that set of data and putting them in the right sequence. It's in the cathedral coin collection, and the rest of the information isn't visible to an anonymous user. If I was looking at the same thing from my own database, and where I do have editing privileges, and we went down to, well, any of them actually, here's Tiberius, and obviously I've got a lot more fields of information. Often there'll be Greek and Latin inscriptions in detail, the material, etc. But I don't make all of that publicly available because it's probably too much information. So this goes right down to modern history, goes through the Middle Ages, goes through the Reformation period. So let's scroll down now. We're still in the 1st century. There's some coins of Pontius Pilate. He's kind of relevant. Let's go a couple of centuries further through. We're still in the 2nd century. Now we're getting towards the Byzantine period. Not quite there. Okay, here we go. Constantine I. So this is one of his coins. Unlike the one Peter showed us before, this one does have him on the front, wearing the laurel wreath, like I'm the boss. I've got the fancy headdress. Okay? This is not the people of Rome. This is Constantine. So again, you can work through these. Continuing down, we get coins from the Reformation. Just got to scroll forward a fair way. Okay. For example, if you're into Anglican history, here's a coin from Henry VIII, another attractive-looking character. And actually, if we were looking in modern or late medieval history, you'd recognise straight away this is a design of British coins, which is going to be a feature of coins minted in London for quite some time and so on. So some of the history is there. James I, King James Bible, and so on. Right down to Australian coin of 1952. I'm looking for the coin from the rum. What's it called again, Peter? The Holy Dollar. Do you remember? Here we go. So this is the bit that was knocked out of the middle, okay, from 1813 in Sydney. And this is the bit out of which the middle was knocked. So a Spanish coin adapted for use in the colony of New South Wales, first currency for Australia. These, I think, are replicas, or this one is not.
They're original.
Okay, we do have some replicas, I think, but the one in the cathedral collection is an actual holy dollar, and it is worth actually quite a lot of money. Yeah. Rum rebellion, all that sort of stuff. Okay, right down to coins minted or communion tokens minted by the Presbyterian Church in Brisbane, and so on. So our coins and medals and medallions and so on have their part. There's a coin from Palestine in the British Mandate period, and there's a coin from Israel in 1949, and so on. There's even a Elizabeth II coin from 1952, which is very nice, since that's my year. All right. So that's an example of how the online material which is there could either help with preparing for a visit to the cathedral coins, or provide material to do a virtual visit if you weren't able to actually arrange a physical trip. Similarly, now I've gone into presumably I'm on the exhibitions page. Some of you will know about the numismatic kits, which are a collection of coins more or less covering the same range of topics and periods, and it's basically a sort of shoebox full of coins with PowerPoint and various other things to go with it. And these are coins the kids can pass around and touch and literally get the feel of, and asking questions like, so what kind of people would have held this coin? What could they have used this coin to do? Okay? And because in a few years they'll be saying, coin? Like, what's a coin? Well, they're the things that used to rattle around in Granddad's ashtray in the car. Ashtray. Ashtray is the place where you put the coins, yes. Has a funny name. All right, so again, the same thing applies. Let's just go numismatic kit number 1. It'll take you into that database. And again, you've got coins. So you've got coins from Herod the Great and his sons. So Herod Archelaus, Archelaus is the guy who's mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew. Sorry, where are we? Not awake yet? Okay. I'll do it without that now. Okay. So Archelaus, Herod Antipas, he's the emperor, he's the ruler. I'd like to be emperor. He was the ruler up in Galilee. Tiberius, of course, after whom the city of Tiberias is named, built by Herod Antipas. Augustus, Pontius Pilate, Herod Agrippa.
So,
yep.
When we got a Pontius Pilate coin, what would be because he was governing,
Yeah.
could he invent or put coins out
Yes.
while he's the governor? Is that
Yes, he was so he had similar but probably, so Herod's kingdom is split. 3 ways after his death. Well, his daughter got an island at a palm grove, but forget about her. The 3 boys that were not yet dead, they each got a bit of the kingdom. So Archelaus, he got Judea and Samaria, which is half the kingdom, but he only got the title ethnarch. So on his coin you find ethnarch. Okay, Antipas and Philip, they're called tetrarchs. They got a quarter each. So the rules of a quarter. Now each of those 3 were entitled to issue bronze coins only. Silver coins were issued by nominated provincial mints and were more important cities than Jerusalem. So the only coins that are minted in Caesarea, Jerusalem, Tiberias, Bethsaida, whatever, Sepphoris, they're bronze coins. And they could only be spent inside that guy's territory. They were not much more than shopping coupons. I pay you in bronze coins, you must spend it in my kingdom, and I will charge tax, or I will even run the shop at which you spend the coins I gave you. Okay? Silver coins circulated more broadly. Gold coins could only be minted in Rome.
Were there temple coins to go to the temple to buy things?
No, well, the temple priests, so the temple authorities, they would accept these bronze coins. They're called prutar. One coin is called a prutar. There were just under 1,000 of them to a denarius. A denarius is a silver coin that represents a decent pay for a day's work. Hence all those parables about a denarius. Okay, so it's a day's pay, a silver coin. You're buying a slave, it might cost you a month's salary, 30 denarii, 30 pieces of silver, price of a slave. That's what Judas gets paid for handing over Jesus. Ding, ding, ding. So the clergy, the temple officials, they would accept bronze coins. They were counted by weight because they're handmade coins. They're of uneven thickness. Their value was the metal more than anything else. So you bring them in and they had to weigh the relevant amount. Okay, but if you were wanting to buy, if you needed a coin to pay the temple tax, it had to be a silver coin from Tyre, because Jerusalem couldn't mint a silver coin. And although the silver coin from Tyre had the pagan god Melkart on the coin, it was 97% pure silver. And that was perfectly acceptable to the priests at the temple.
Or shrewd.
Yes.
Okay.
So the money changes, is that what's going on there?
Yeah. So you'd come in with all your bags of copper and you want to buy a lamb or you want to buy a dove or whatever, you want to pay for a sacrifice. Well, that's fine, but you can only use you've got to use silver money. And we have an exchange rate. You put on a bag of almost 1,000 copper coins. Remember the poor widow had 2 copper coins, 2 pruta, means prutot. She had 2 coins. She would have needed another 966 of them to get 1 denarius. So it's take a 1 cent piece and cut it in half. That's roughly what a prutar was in our language. Okay? So people like Pontius Pilate, he would issue coins, as did the other Roman procurators. One of the interesting things is that the procurators in Jerusalem never put the emperor's face on their coins out of respect to the Jewish law. Okay? They put other symbols. So this one, for instance, bring it up. Okay, it's a bit hard to make it out even in that. So on the front of the coin, the obverse, it's got a shape which is a bit hard to see, but it's this kind of L-shaped sort of thing over here. That's the ladle, the spoon, which would be used by the emperor when making a sacrifice to the gods of Rome in his role as Pontifex Maximus, which is now a title for the Pope. Okay, so Pilate couldn't put Tiberius dressed as a Roman god but he could have the ladle which the emperor used to make sacrifices to the Roman god. It was a compromise.
Yeah.
So the coins are little micro multimedia devices that are encoding messages for their audience, most of whom can't read, but they can recognise the symbols. So they're really saying Rome is in charge, but we're not going to push your face in it. Meanwhile, Philip and Herod Antipas are also issuing coins, and they have little bursts of coin activity because they're competing for influence. Think of coins as like ancient tweets, but you can't put out 16 overnight while waiting for the white races to arrive the next morning. But you put out these coins and they're used in the marketplace, and they're reminding everybody who's in charge and some of your bits off your CV. So Antipas declares the village of Bethsaida, he renames it as the city Julius in honour of Tiberius's dead mother on the first anniversary of her death. Because he's now founded a city, on his coins he puts city founder. All he did was rename a village, but he's now the founder of a city. Look at me. Why is that important? Because his brother, Herod Antipas, has built a real city called Tiberias. So he has to have a coin that says city builder. Otherwise he's going to lose face. So that's what these coins, depending what coin you've got in the kit, this is the sort of stuff you have access to. This is a coin from Herod Agrippa, a nice silver denarius. You can see a different quality in the coins between the bronze coins of a provincial minor ruler and a silver coin from the emperor. Okay, and of course silver doesn't rust. So unless they get really worn off, you dig up a coin now and it's still in mint condition if it's silver or gold. Whereas a bronze coin will corrode. It'll interact with the soil and the moisture, and it's not as easy to read. Our friend Philip made one mistake. The very first coin he issued, he actually put his head on the front. Really unusual for a Jewish ruler. But his territory was up on the Golan, and most of his subjects were pagans. So he puts himself on the front and Tiberius on the back. And he never put out a coin like that ever again. Presumably a memo arrived from Rome, from the Isle of Capri or whatever, and all future coins have the emperor on the front and some other provincial symbol on the back. But it does mean we know what Philip looked like, because he did put his moniker on a coin. So that's numismatic kit number 1. Okay, we're working through the exhibitions that from the database we have, which increasingly becoming a database with graphics and information, so that if people are looking through the exhibitions, we just looked at the cathedral coins, but for example, we won't do Ephesus because Peter's going to talk about Ephesus. Let's take the coins of Tarsus. So there's 35 coins from the 5th century down BCE to the 3rd century CE, so covering about 800 years. I can do that much maths. And you'll see certain themes in the coins. So yes, you can click on that and download the PowerPoint, which you're welcome to do. But if you just go to the gallery, it'll take you into the database, hopefully, and it'll just filter out the coins that are tagged as being in the Tarsus collection, and they're organised. They're hopefully sorted by date. It's looking okay so far. 425, 425, 413. So these are coins, mostly silver coins. That tells you straight away Tarsus was a major city. It had a license to mint silver coins. So when Paul says, I'm from Tarsus, he's not saying I'm from Grafton. Okay, he's saying I'm from a big city and we've got privileges. So you can trace the history of what's going on in Tarsus, and how it's conquered by different groups of people before it gets absorbed into the Roman. Alexander the Great gets absorbed into the Roman Empire eventually. So now we're coming down to the time of Augustus and then Tiberius. So we're into the lifetime of Jesus, overlapping with Jesus. And by this stage, so coins that are being issued by this one here, for example, just click onto this record. Okay, so this is a bronze from Tarsus. It features Tyche. She's very popular all through the ancient Middle East. She's the goddess of good luck, of fortune. And she typically wears a walled city on her head because she's bringing good fortune to the city. So you all want to be nice to Tyche. And so this is a coin minted there in about 14. So just a bit before Paul's time. Although he would have handled coins like that. Okay? And you didn't have the option saying, look, I don't do pagan gods. Could I have a coin that doesn't have a pagan god on it? If you want to buy and sell, you use my coins. It's that simple. Okay? Yeah, there was no respecting religious sensitivities except for the coins minted in Palestine itself. Okay? So these go right down until, down to about 300 or so of the Common Era. Again, I'm just looking for one to click on that might be a bit more interesting. Okay. This is a charming little device. So it's got the emperor. He's got the rays of the sun god, Sol, radiating out from his throne because that's who he represents. And then you've got this sacred symbol on an altar and so on. I'll just go back to the note so you can see what we've said about that particular item. Okay, so it's a prize crown with 2 palm branches, and it's sitting on a sacred table. Okay, so when Paul writes about straining forward to get the prize and so on, this is some of the public discourse of Tarsus and of the eastern part of the Roman Empire. This is much later than Paul, but the same sort of language is still going on. So that's an example of what's available from the Tarsus set. The history of coins, I think that's going out shortly to St. Paul's. Same idea. The coins that are in that subset, which are available for lending, you can look up. You can just go to the website, click on the link, and these have been filtered and arranged. So you get a sense of, if I did order this exhibition, if I did request this exhibition, and spoke nicely to Vanessa, and she spoke nicely to Peter, and it appeared magically at your school, what would I get? Well, you don't have to wait till the box arrives. You can click on the website, you can go through, and you can see exactly what coins are going to be in that shoebox when it arrives. Okay? Similarly, from over here, if you really wanted to, you can download the PowerPoint. See how good my 5G phone is. So you will get this on a USB that comes with the coins, but in the meantime you can be looking at the PowerPoint, deciding how you're going to use it as is, or you might decide that you want to modify it or add to it, skip certain slides or whatever. Hello, wake up. Anyway, now it's going to be really nasty to me. Here we go. Okay, I haven't tried to do it live from the web before, so we'll just look at it in preview mode. So you can, So it'll explain what's coming up, and then talks about the electrum coins, which are the first kind of commercial tokens which were developed, and then you actually you'll have one of those coins in the kit. But you can do your preparation long before the thing arrives. Okay.
How does it compare with like Chinese coins? When were they happening? Same sort of time frame? Or?
Yeah, a bit later. They're commonly called spade coins because they weren't circular. They were rectangular pieces, sometimes with like the tooth of a double-headed spade or whatever. So the coins that developed in East Asia they're much later, and probably partly a result of the Silk Road kind of influence, but they have their own characteristics, particularly in Korea and China and so on. The coins, particularly when you get through to the Islamic period, coins spread. So from the 7th century onwards, as Islam takes over not only the Mediterranean world, but the Middle East and then South Asia, so you find, and right through to Malaysia and Indonesia. So you find sort of Islamic coins, originally hand-produced, eventually machine-produced in the 19th century. Very ornate, lots of Arabic on them, but you can see the family tree. But also, by then, you can see them wanting to issue coins that look like British coins, because the British Empire is the big cultural influence at the time. So you get this merging of cultural streams with text from the Quran, still no images because they're Islamic coins, and after about the first 100 years, for the first 100 years or so, Islamic coins copied Byzantine coins, because they were the coins already out in the marketplace, and they simply defaced the Christian Byzantine coin to put on there is no God but Allah or whatever next to the Christ figure. But eventually they decided not to have any human images at all, and for the most part that's true of Islamic coins ever after. There's an interesting series of Palestinian Islamic coins that feature plants and animals of Palestine. So that's but they weren't humans, was I guess the point. But generally speaking, Islamic coins will simply have a text from the Quran, and then they'll have details of the person who's issuing it. And then by the time you get down to the Ottoman Empire, 1517 onwards, they're very much about promoting the Sultan. So the Sultan's personal signature, called a tuhra, goes on the front. It's a stylized monogram unique for each Sultan, but indistinguishable to most of us. But then the other information on the coin will say the year that it was minted and whereabouts it was minted and what the value is. And then from the mid-19th century, these are machine-produced coins using mint machinery imported from Europe. So again, you see cultural change going through. Now there is an exhibition for Islamic manuscripts and so on. We don't yet have most of those items in the database, but again, this exhibition can be borrowed. It's manuscripts, it's coins, and a number of other objects which represent Islamic culture and history. And when I have sufficient time, they will end up being photographed and sort of annotated and added into this online gallery format as well. Same for the Roman Empire coins and so on. Okay? So this was just a kind of a walkthrough of what's already available, quite apart from arranging to get a teaching kit. I know a couple of weeks, back before Christmas, I dropped one of the numismatic kits into Emmanuel Anglican College at Ballina for the chaplain, Sally Miller. And before I got to Grafton, before I'd got out of Ballina really, there was a text message to say, my history teachers have seen it. Can it go to the staff room until after Christmas? And I went, yeah, that's fine. So that, I mean, the teachers wanted to play with it. Never mind the class. The teachers were fascinated to have inkwells or oil lamps or whatever from the 1st, 2nd century. Okay? So it's very much about taking this collection over time, I guess, growing the collection. At this stage, the focus is on trying to annotate and to document and photograph and annotate the 3,000 to 5,000 objects that we probably already have in hand, but only about 3,000 of them are in the database at the moment. And Jeff, I go back to my version of the database, which I can edit, just to give you a sense. So, yes, we have stuff from the Byzantine period. We do have a small collection of icons, and again, with appropriate payment of obsequiousness, we can arrange to share these around. Islamic coins, medals of various kinds, most of which we don't yet have photographs of. I like the Alcoholics Anonymous medal. That's not one I aspire to myself. We have military memorabilia. So we have items from the Australian Light Horse Regiment. So a lot of this is, in a sense, it's not religious history, although often there are religious elements to those bits of military propaganda that are being handed out to people. There are chaplains' badges and regalia, stuff from the First, Second World War. Trench art, this one, for example, is interesting. So this is sorry, I'll just click onto it. This is actually, let's see if I can go up the screen a bit. No. Okay, hopefully you can see that. This is actually a coin, Islamic coin from earlier in the 19th century, from the Sultan Abdul Aziz. And Aziz is the Arabic word for beloved. It's the common word used for an Anglican minister in Palestine. He'll either be called Abuna, father, or Aziz, meaning beloved, respected. So Abdul Aziz, and this is one of his coins, but it's been, and on the front you can just see the leftover of his signature. It's a coin worth, so it's printed in the 15th year of his reign, which was 1876. But on the back, a soldier serving in Iraq during the First World War, a bit bored with it, he's taken this coin he's picked up in the marketplace, would have still been a current coin. He smoothed off the back of the coin and he's done his own little drawing of Baghdad from 1917, 1918, 1919. And it's put his serial number and his name, okay, and the regiment, the 3rd Corps that he was with. Now we've got more than one example of this. So there's a whole genre of military art which involves effacing and engraving coin from the country you're occupying and giving it maybe some religious, in this case it's not particularly religious, although interestingly he still has a mosque and of course the crescent and the star. So it's acknowledging the Islamic context of that scene. Randall.
I was just going to say, my Uncle Bob was a World War I soldier in the Western Front, and I grew up talking to him as a young person, and what they would do is get local currency.
I didn't get that.
And they wouldn't know they would replace them. You just train running over with
Yeah.
with scrub it, and then they do their scribbling on the back of the one.
Yeah. So this is one of this guy's mates. It's a guy called Dr. J. Unsworth. He's in the 55th Brigade. He's doing a very similar drawing. Okay.
I'm not sure I understand.
I didn't ask for help, Siri. Thank you. She often doesn't understand me. All right. And another one. This is kind of interesting. Military art, or trench art as it's called. This is turning a bullet into a crucifix. Now, okay, it's not coins. Remember, it's Centre for Coins, Culture, Religious History. And so this kind of artefacts could be used if you're doing a unit on World War One history. You could also be exploring how faith, how religion function from the German buckles that had Gott mit uns on them. I'm not sure if we've got the actual a photo of that one in here, but we have one here. Yeah, okay, I just can't find it here. So it's this one, but we actually don't have it photographed yet. So 1914 German belt buckle with the inscription Gott mit uns. Meanwhile, in one of the other trenches, there's a British soldier taking one of the bullets and turning it into a crucifix. I mean, how does faith play out in complex situations? So it's not just ancient coins, it's not just biblical archaeology. There's all kinds of stuff here where, particularly in an Anglican school, we can explore it. We can explore the interface of faith and power and world history and what's it all about, Georgie, kind of thing. All right, so that's just there as a resource, CCCRH.org, and my ongoing job. I'm retiring in March of next year, and my retirement project is to just keep on doing this stuff and getting more and more of these resources annotated and documented in ways that colleagues can use as teaching resources, whether that be in a parish or a school situation. Okay, so make use of it, it's there for you.